This is Find Your Magic, where we interview people who have found their magic and the courage to live into it. My name is Tracy Feldstein. I am a body and wellness engineer and the owner of Hello Mellow Natural Skincare.
And I'm Jaime Gennaro. I am a business consultant and a career coach. And this week we interviewed Deep Singh, who goes by ManLikeDeep. Deep does a really fantastic show that he streams on YouTube and also on Twitch. And we're going to put links below because he's a lot of fun. And we talked to Deep about fear and goal setting and all the things that come up from that. So it's a great interview. Hope you enjoy. And if you like what you see, like and subscribe. And come join us at the summit in January, which seems so far from now, but at some point we're going to be doing shows where we're like, come to the summit next month.
Right.
It's January 2022, 7th, 8th, and 9th in Ojai, California. So my first question for you, and then I'll pass it to Tracy, but my big question for you is, how did you decide? I know that you had this interest in radio, obviously, but how did you decide, like, day one, I'm going to start doing this streaming thing? And what was like that moment of fear? Because that's always the thing that stops people when they're like, I could do this cool thing, but it also feels a little bit out of my comfort zone. What was that day like when you sort of were like, this is it, I'm going to try this out and see how it goes?
I think this idea, this fear thing's really interesting, because I don't think there was a day I decided to conquer the fear. It kind of builds. You kind of start to build and kind of get confidence and kind of talk to yourself. I think there was a point, at some point previous, I started to realize that no one really cares what you do. They might, hit a like or kind of make a comment, but it's not really about you at all. So as kind of weird and kind of glitchy as the first ever broadcast was, I didn't really care too much. So I had a real kind of laissez-faire, don't care attitude. I'm just going to do this, and it doesn't really matter who watches. And only when it started to kind of build, I started to care a bit more. Because I felt a responsibility. But so this might be interesting, Jaime, for you, given that you're a business consultant, you coach people. I ended up, as I rediscovered this scene online over the sort of lockdown last year, I ended up, and I realized there were lots of people I used to buy records from, I used to follow, I used to go out and kind of dance to, and they're DJs and the whole thing, and they're all online now. It's 20 years later. And they all have profiles online, and obviously, if you're online, you're kind of like your heroes. You can access them, you send them a message, and the rest of it. And I found that one of them, somebody was declared themselves as a life coach, and they were a music person, and I was really quite keen to follow them and the rest of it. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. You're a life coach. I see an opportunity here. I did 2 years of counseling training years ago, so I have a sort of I have a slight kind of mind for it, a kind of an eye for what that entails. I thought, well, wouldn't it be amazing to connect with this kind of like hero, one of these kind of cool people I used to really follow and buy all their records, and kind of engage with them on a coaching thing. And maybe I can find a way to learn about the scene and the industry and the whole bit. And at the time, I wanted to make music. I used to make music, electronic music, years ago. And I wanted to make music at the beginning of last year, and I ended up talking to this guy, and the guy listened to my background and the fact I've been doing some entrepreneur startups for years and the rest of it. And I used to do radio back in the old days. He thought, you might want to think a bit bigger than just making music. Actually, it might be because he heard some of the music. I thought, yeah, maybe try something else. But and I ended up, he ended up, because it was a structured sort of coaching session. He said, what's your goal? I said, I don't think we have a goal. Oh, here's my goal. I want to make $500,000. Thank you very much. From music. Yes, let's do that. And it just sounded ridiculous. I thought, well, I'll just throw that out there and see what comes back. And he's okay. So how are we going to do it? Let's break it down. Let's kind of go backwards and forwards and the rest of it, the whole bit. And making music really wasn't, especially this very, very niche kind of subgenre and genre, it didn't seem to make any sense. But he listened to my background and the radio and the whole bit. I've been doing lots of entrepreneurial online stuff. And so you might want to think a bit bigger and think about maybe making yourself into a bit of a platform where people can congregate and do things on your platform. And that's when I thought, well, actually, I used to do the radio. And why don't I'd love to do a kind of talk show type thing, but with a bit of music in the background. I never really got there, but I started with, and this person kind of forced me to kind of have stuff set up, have a plan, have dates, and kind of meet them. So I kind of just sat there, and for about 15 minutes, I thought, what I could do is I could play some music and then have a bit where I go through the news and then play some more music and then review some records, and that'll be it. And that'll be my hour show. And that's what I did. And I started doing that, and I continued doing that. And it started to change and turn into something a little bit more funny and silly. And, there's a bit of my personality too. And that's kind of where we've ended up. Getting to trying to make $500,000 from music is not anywhere near there. But that's an interesting thing anyway, given that that's where we started. But going back to your original question, I think with that little bit of coaching and validation from somebody I really respected, reminding me about my background, a lot of the fears were allayed, but also I really didn't, at that point, I really didn't care what anyone thought, yeah.
Yeah, that's a hurdle. That's a hurdle for a lot of people, right? Like that's the first step, is just, okay, let's just put it out there. I mean, that's what Tracy and I are doing essentially with this. Like, let's just put it out there. This is just for us to connect with people who we think are inspiring, and to hopefully inspire other people who are on that cusp of figuring out what's next, and, letting things stand in their way, just being inspired by it. But it's true. You just kind of like, you got to ship it. You have to put it out there, and then it starts to evolve and grow and become something else.
100%. This thing about being perfect and getting stuff just right, it's a problem. You never, you get it. And I've done that in the past. I've been worried about what people think. And again, no one gives a shit. No one's looking and watching until there's a few people watching. And by then, all that stuff doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. So fascinating, because you seem so grounded in that, right? In that, like, I don't really care. There was never a moment. Is there anything that you do care about that does give you that pause, or that is a hurdle for you at all, even now?
So the disclaimer is I do care a lot. I care a lot about what people think, and I'm keen to get validation and everything and acknowledgement. If I don't get it, it's a problem. So having to kind of force that don't care attitude was really important, because otherwise I'd just be shackled to this idea of perfection and kind of needing that acknowledgement and validation. So I had to kind of force myself to do something that was slightly different for my own sanity, actually. And remember, this is actually because of just working a full-time job forever. That never really ends. Emails coming in at midnight and the rest of it, just life in 2021, right? That's just how it was. It's sort of just a need to kind of get some sort of sanity. So faking it till I make it, I guess probably the best way to describe kind of getting through that. Yeah.
Is that what that looks like for you when it comes up and those, voices come in? Do you have a practice that you do that keeps you, or you just
not really, but I'm just being aware that you aren't your own thoughts is a start, right? You don't have to be owned by them. Yeah. So just that awareness is a start. I think that when I come across people that talk about kind of hacks or ways to kind of get around their own self, it always sounds easier. And no one ever gives the disclaimer that it doesn't work for them all the time. Yeah. Everyone's a human, everyone's failed. That's okay too. But if I catch myself falling into kind of patterns that aren't helpful, I'll try and snap out of it. And maybe after the 10th attempt, I will, right? So it's never easy.
What does the trying look like? What is that? What do you do to get yourself out of it?
Well, I don't think this happens enough. So I've got a kind of playbook but I think if I catch myself worrying about what people think, so we're talking about the idea of kind of that hurdle of fear. If I find myself getting worried about things and I recognize it's just the same old patterns and they're not real, I'll just almost sort of have a conversation with myself that it's not, it's all good. And really to kind of have this almost a kind of arrogant, fuck them, it doesn't really matter sort of attitude, and push through it, which isn't really my personality. So almost take on a slightly different personality for a minute, jump on the back of that, ride through, then jump back off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm.
Yeah. Sometimes you kind of have to step outside of yourself to give yourself that courage, right? To say like, hey.
And I think journaling a little bit is good. I would write emails to myself, which, because I can't even read my own handwriting. It's at that point, you know, it goes. Throw a cat on the keyboard. It's like, did you mean? It's like, thanks, Google. So I'll write emails to myself as a journal thing, and that will help. But that takes effort, and I'm not very good at that. But stuff like that, having a little conversation with yourself, writing to yourself, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. And so with your current, like where your platform, where your show is going now, is there something that you feel like you want to push now? Like, do you feel like it's getting comfortable and there's something else, another hurdle you're ready to step over?
I've got lots of ideas. So the big challenge is work, right? Work and family, trying to fit it all in. And for a period, this little news kind of format thing turned into having a guest come on that was part of this community and co-hosting it with them live. So I would have a Zoom thing and I would have it live, and they would be a little bit delayed based on the stuff I was pulling up because the stream was a bit delayed. It was a whole nightmare, but it worked, and I was able to almost pull off what seemed like a live professional production, but the work involved was a nightmare. I was doing all sorts of stuff. It was a labor of love. I really enjoyed it, but it was taking up so much time. I was spending no time. I work from home. I'm very lucky to be able to work from home, but no time in the front room with the kids. It's work, and then kind of thinking about the stream, and then streaming, and it's almost time for bed. And then that was a problem, and that's an issue I think a lot of streamers have, is trying to be consistent while maintaining their life outside of work, outside of streaming. I would like to do more, but work has its place, and that takes priority over anything else. I think I'd like to do more interview type shows. And I don't think it necessarily has to be related to the music either. I am interested in kind of people and trying to get kind of interesting things from conversations. I'm not sure how that fits in the platform I'm on right now. I'd also like to kind of make videos, standalone videos like you do on YouTube. And I'm very, very interested in how YouTube works and what makes people want to stick around and watch a video all the way through the end. Something interesting happened sometime last year. I got an email from an ad agency, and they'd noticed that I'd wrote something on Reddit about condiments and mixing condiments together. And it turns out that they were representing Heinz, and Heinz were going to do a run of condiments that were mixes of condiments, so hot sauce and ranch or whatever. That was my one. And anyway, long story short, they paid me to kind of do like an hour, well, to kind of just eat some wings and fries on camera with this thing and react. And it took me about an hour to do that, and I got quite a lot of money for that. And I couldn't believe that what had happened is they'd found this comment I'd made online, looked me up, found my YouTube, and they go, oh, okay, he's comfortable on camera, or we'll just use him. And I couldn't believe it was such a significant amount of money. Well, it wasn't a lot, but it's enough to, it makes a difference to your mum. And I couldn't believe that had happened just off me broadcasting and kind of being out there. And it kind of gave me a glimpse of maybe getting to this goal of making enough money to live. But again, it's that kind of, it's balancing work that actually does pay the bills and it's a great job and I love my work, I love the people I work with, and kind of trying to get this creative thing going and trying to make sure that you kind of tend to both of them kind of in equal measure.
What Tracy and I talk about a lot is that goals are not meant to actually be hit, right? You don't set a goal to hit the goal. You set a goal to start on a path that will push you and challenge you and get you somewhere that you wouldn't be without setting that goal. And what I love is that you realize that early on. You're like, okay, I have this goal. I'm going to make 500,000, because of course coaches always want you to have a goal. And so, you set this goal and you're like, but I don't care. Like I'm not attached to the outcome. It's not that I'm not going to be happy with what I'm doing because I set this goal and I'm not reaching this goal. It's like, no, that goal is just there. Whether or not you reach it is sort of not the point,
right?
But it's still there. Like you're still going after it. And these things are coming up and making you realize that like, oh, maybe it's not that ridiculous after all. Like maybe it's not that far out of reach and you just keep going towards it. And I think that's really interesting.
I think what you say about keep going towards it is really important. I find every time I've tried to do something, which is kind of revisit my love of art back in the art and go to a class or journaling or streaming, I think it's important to stay consistent and just to keep doing it, just to keep going and not stop. And to your point, like not get disheartened if you're not kind of getting to some one particular goal fast enough or you haven't made it. I almost realize now, I think now that the key to being successful in any creative endeavor is just to keep doing it. But sometimes people just do it just for the moment and they're not very goal oriented, and that's cool too. But in my case, I'd love to do more of it and actually be able to live off it. So if I'm able to continually do it, just not stop doing it, kind of almost you make your own luck, you find your own connections. It's interesting that we've connected just because your brother happened to be on a stream, on one of my streams. He would never have been on my stream had I not invited someone that he watches onto my stream. And so these connections just appear because you're still out there doing it. And I think that's really important.
My only way to connect with my family has always been with video calls. And now I'm like, oh, the whole world is connecting with their family through video calls. I'm not like the one weird person who uses the platform. I think we all feel so much more comfortable now that it does open up more. I mean, Twitch is a different platform, but I think just in general, maybe there's a little bit more of that in the gaming community, that everyone's already been inside and hiding in their caves and
I think so. I think the way I'm old, so I don't play games. I don't do any of that. So culture, it's quite interesting, but people live online. Yeah. And one of my colleagues plays games, I suppose seriously. And I mean, I could consider it serious. I'm sure they're quite casual about it, but they just spend all of their time online. All of their friends aren't in the same city as them. Yeah. It's just really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really, I feel like that's expanded, and I'm so grateful for that, because I think for me too, I live in the Netherlands. I don't speak Dutch and I feel really isolated sometimes, but now I'm like, oh, look, my community is actually really big and, rich. And I have ways to connect with people and do things in a way that I couldn't before. Or that I could have, but I'm not in that community. So now it's like the community has opened up more. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we call this finding your magic, and it feels like you have, and I guess I just have that question of does it feel that way when you're doing your live streaming? Does it feel like the thing that obviously you would just do for fun and it feeds you? Does it nourish you? Does it feel magical to you?
It's interesting is there was a period where I was really trying to find my magic. And for the longest time, I thought that my magic was my love of art. So when I was growing up, art was my thing. Visual art was my thing. And then I left it. It's a really long, drawn out story, but it doesn't matter. But I do think about it a lot. And I thought, well, that was the thing. And I've lost the thing because I tried to do that thing now and I can't do it. It doesn't feel the same way. And I remember trying to find my magic by starting a little project on Facebook called Develop Your Passion. And I bought the domain and the whole thing, and I started kind of broadcasting and talking about it. But really, I was talking about trying to find my own passion. And then I realized actually that it wasn't the one thing you should be looking for. There could be a number of things actually, and those things they kind of they're sometimes at the front, they sometimes kind of fade to the back, and that's okay too. For the longest time, I thought I'd lost my love, my magic, the thing I used to love, and because I'd lost it, I could never get it back. And now I'm doing something quite different, even though it has some roots in the past. And I think that this thing evolves. I think it's healthy to also be cool with, having things develop into other things. I'm not sure where this broadcasting is going to go, but I'm quite keen to embrace anything that kind of sparks inspiration that may not relate to this. I don't feel like I have to just stick to this one format and the whole thing. And it doesn't really matter if it hurts the following I have and stuff, as long as I'm able to kind of just keep going towards something that I'm interested in genuinely. Because if I'm not, it starts to feel like a job, then I got two jobs. I don't want two jobs, So yeah, I've got some strong feelings about this idea of finding your magic, because I think I've found myself getting stuck when I realized that the thing I thought was the thing that was for me isn't for me anymore. So now I've got nothing. So I'm just trying to be a little bit more kind of I'm not sure what the word is, but I guess I'm not as attached to one thing anymore. Just kind of being open to lots of things. The one problem with that is that sometimes there's too many things you want to try and do. I think it's okay to have more than one thing that you're into, and that it's okay if it changes too. That magic changes, it kind of wanes a bit and something else pops up. That's all right too.
Yeah.
Agree.
I love that. Yeah. It's kind of the same idea about like that attachment. And I think it's the same, it comes from that same place of fear when you're so worried about like, what's my purpose? Because I think this idea of magic and purpose is really similar. And it's like, well, what's my purpose? What's the one big magical, important, lifelong thing that I was born to do? And then people are like, well, that's too hard of a question to answer.
That's really hard.
I'd rather just sit still, because that if I start going in that direction, then I'm telling myself that like,
exactly.
Oh, my magic is doing this show, but I really felt like it should have been music. And then you start to put all this pressure on yourself, and
that's right.
And you have to let go of that attachment to it. It's like, it's just wherever I find inspiration.
Right?
Exactly.
And kind of that same perfectionist thing, right? That I chose this one thing, so I have to stick with it, and I have to do it this way, and it has to look this way. And if anything has taught me that you just got to step into it and keep following the thing that feels, and we're using the word magic or passion or fleeting or feels exciting to you and inspirational. And it's like, even in this last year, I feel like I've gone this way and that way, and I've had a class and I've done this, and it's like, yeah, I really like that part of it. I really didn't love that part of it. Okay. And I'm just not judging myself. And that's sort of been the piece that's new, to say, that's all right. I bought that website. Yeah, I don't like it anymore. Cool. Let's do something else. I'm like,
yeah. And the problem is, when you look at inspirations out there, you almost assume they have found that one thing and they're sticking with it. But that's not true. It's not true. Mm-hmm. Humans are humans, right? So sometimes there's an off day, they're an up, they're a down, and sometimes they've got more than one passion for sure. I definitely take inspiration from my kids. My kids are 5 and 3. You watch them. And 1 week they are very passionate about one thing, and the next week they just couldn't care less. They're not going to give it any thought.
Yeah.
At all. It's over. And they might come back to it, may not. It just doesn't matter. Yeah. And I think that's very healthy, actually. It's like, I'm done with that now. I'm going to move on to something else. Yeah. For us though, we'll say, we'll take them to the class. We'll find the ballet class for her, and the next week she's not interested. Oh my God, what are we going to do now? But for them, it's very healthy. I like it. It's definitely an inspiration watching them kind of just be who they are.
Yeah. And it's our fault when we're like, okay, you like that thing, let's do it. Like, we're going to do it 2-3 times a week now. We're going to get you a special extra coach. Like, okay, this is going to be your thing. And it's like, no, that's not healthy. Like, we don't need to push you into doing that when you're small. Try it on.
Yeah, and going back to when I thought I let me try and make $500,000 from my thing. It's actually, and you made a good point. It's like it doesn't have to be that thing. Just going towards something better. I almost feel like now I'm using streaming as a way to just escape the kind of the other parts of life that can end up being quite a lot of work. And I'm happy with that for now. And if anything comes of it, that's great. But I want to keep doing it for sure. Just like you take your vitamins every day, every time you brush your teeth. It's just self-care,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Me too. Very cool. It's you chose it for you. It is what feeds you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Amazing. Yeah. And I love the whole idea too of like, I set this goal and, you know, it's there. I 100% know he's going to reach it.
Totally. Me too. I was like, that was the fire in my belly the whole time was like, leave it alone, Trace. Don't leave it alone, Trace. Leave it alone. It's like, it's already happening.
Zero question. He is 100% going to make it, and very quickly,
100%.
because all of a sudden you could see that he was just like, whatever was, you know, not that anything held him back. He's totally grounded, but whatever was there in the beginning, it's like, oh, I set this goal. And now it's like, boom, it's coming.
Yeah. Right. And that's the cool part about talking, right? It's like the stuff we shove down, right? When he brought it up, it started all the moving, right? And then you shove it down because you're like, okay, well, it's not the goal. It's just that now I'm doing this. And so the goal, not a big deal. And then we pulled the goal back out, you know, and he looked at it and was like, you could feel it. Like,
yeah,
well, there actually is kind of a way to do it. And I was like, huh?
Yeah, it's like,
we were both like,
you did pay me for the thing. And like, I was
it's
really
kind of weirdly
surprised.
incredible just by me saying something. Like it made me want to pull in like a bag of Lay's potato chips to our conversation.
Yeah, anybody got some ketchup? Let's put some ketchup into this video.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's incredible. And I love that part too. And I think that is part of that collaboration too, right? And being able to keep talking about it does do that. It puts more water on the seeds that you planted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't, and just like everyone that we've talked to, I can't wait to talk to him again.
I know, we do.
And just be like, okay, did you quit? Like, what happened? How many times do you stream a day? Like, who's on your production team? Like,
what's your dream now? Where are you now? Yeah.
What show are you rating for Netflix? What show are you pitching? What comedy show? Seriously, when you watch his show, he is hilarious. Like he's a total, when you listen to morning show hosts that you really like, because some of them are kind of annoying, but they have like those buttons that they push with all the sound effects and stuff. And he's just got it dialed in. He's got his little things that he says all the time. I think he's fantastic. So anyone that's watching this, the links will be included because you have to check them out. It's just so fun. It's like a joy, especially right now with everything that everyone's going through. It's so fun to just watch someone who's like in their zone, being themselves, being just chatty and catty. And it's really fun. I'm so happy that there's like a platform for that kind of entertainment.
Me too. And I'm so glad your brother introduced us to him.
I know.
So awesome.
It's so fun because my brother's in this world that I have never entered.
It's so fun. And again, there's like this common thing, right? Of humanness through all of the platforms. And that's what I think is cool that we're finding. It's like, yeah, we can all do different things. We can all think different things. We can all have different ideas and opinions and whatnot, but there's also this like genuine humanness that we all experience, and there are all these feelings and there's all these things that come up, and how cool, right? Yeah. How cool to be able to connect and show up in that way with other humans.
Yeah. And I think we should, it's fun that he was kind of like pulling things out for us too. I think it made me realize we need to do an episode where we just talk about how we met, that we've never met before.
Totally.
And that the only time we're going to meet is when we go to do this like big, scary event that we've never done before. We'll just be like, it's on, game on. Let's microdose and invite some people to workshop some magic. It's gonna be so awesome, but it's a funny thing, you know. It is. I think that's also a unique part of what we're doing is that it's not like you and Missy, like we haven't been friends for years. Like we just met and made a connection and like wanted to collaborate, and here we are. So fun.
So fun. And just going for it and seeing what's fun, right? Like when we did this, we were like, okay, we'll try it. I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
loved, like even sending out the first email blast. And it was like my people all wrote me back, like, when you get that figured out, let me know, because there's no way to sign up. And I was like, I wrote you like, Jamie, is there any chance that we
Okay.
filled up? Because everyone's making me sound like I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm confused. You're like, yep, it's full. I'm like, oh my God. This is cool.
I know. It's great because I mean, I think it's a topic a lot of people just haven't had a place to talk about it, right? Like he's got a platform, but this isn't what he's talking about on that platform. And I think he clearly has a great story around this journey of figuring out what he wanted to do and feeling like he lost his magic. I loved that too, that he lost his magic. He found it again, but through all these different things that he never really, saw for himself or expected. And that all the other things are always there. We don't have to say they're gone. They're just on the back burner or something to pick up another time. But I love that it's also his self-care. Oh, I just love that. So many
I
good.
did too. Like that is his mental health, right? That's his
It's so
wellness.
true. And
So
like,
awesome.
how much healthier is it? Like, if we think about the dads from the 50s who come home from work super stressed out, drink as much as they can, smoke a million cigarettes, like, there's that version of self care to like
Yeah.
turn it off and ignore your kids. And there's a version of self care that's like tap into your creativity, tap into a community, start, just entertain people. It's total self-care, and it's so much healthier than what a lot of other people do when they're stressed out by work.
Yeah, totally. And it moves so much more energy. It really frees up your body in a different way. It's so healing compared to, right? Like what you're saying, the old school is like to stuff, right? Numb stuff. And this, he's like, I have a platform to it's almost like he's saying, I like to journal. I like to do, it's like, you're doing all those things, right? You're talking it through, you're getting it out there. You're using your music, you're using all these things that are creative buzzes for you. And that's health. And like, I almost feel like daring everyone to be like, just start a group, right? And start talking and see who shows up and find your group. Like, cause so much, like we're saying, like you're so unlimited on here, like, and on YouTube or, Instagram Live or whatever, you can find a group. And sometimes you feel like you don't have a group where you live, right?
Yeah.
Or you're isolated right now and you really just don't feel like this is your jam, and you feel lonely and you feel alone, right? And isolated. And it's like, you could find a group to talk to and have on and interview, and like, it feels good. Trust us. It feels good.